Welcome to season 2 of Rabbit Holes with Aaron, where we haven't made any drastic changes, but we believe we get better with time. So enjoy the wide constellation of guests that I have on this show. Enjoy our conversations. Hopefully, you get some nuggets and you can learn and grow and become a better person. Thanks for listening. Welcome to Rabbit Holes with Aaron. I am Aaron, and today with me as my guest, I have Lisa Reinhardt. I don't know if she's from Florida, but she's camping in Florida right now, and she has agreed to be my guest, as it turns out, due to a butt dial. And that's the story we're going to get into in a minute. But thank you, and welcome to the podcast, Lisa.
Well, thank you for answering my butt dial, and I'm happy to be here.
And I wanted to talk about the butt dial story first, and then I want to give it to Lisa to talk about a story that's really important for her. But the butt dial story, which is not the most important story, okay, Lisa's story is probably more important, but I wanted to get it out of the way. Yeah, I just got an audio file from her. I didn't know it was a her. I didn't know who it was. It was just another phone number on my phone. I thought it was just another random spam text. But I listened to the audio file, and it sounded like most butt dials do, like traffic or something, just a rushing noise with no vocal, no nothing. And I was like, Later on, I was like, well, I'll pull on that string. So I was like, hey, I didn't understand the audio file. And that started us on a text conversation where we realized we had a lot of things in common right off the bat, where she said she was interested in being a beekeeper, and I've been a beekeeper and am a beekeeper now. And she said she owned an RV spot, and I live in an RV. And there was a few other things. She's married to a Marine, and I was a Marine, and I was like, I thought it was a guy at first, honestly. No offense. I mean, I didn't know. I thought, oh, okay, you're married to a Marine, so you're married to a female Marine. I don't know
You
why
never
I was
know
thinking
these
that
days.
way. You never know. There are female Marines. You can marry them. I was like, okay, we should be friends, right? Like real friends. Like maybe we should start some kind of friendship. And then she said something about her name was Lisa Evers. And I was like, okay, well, then I definitely need to be clear and tell her I'm married. Just not because of you, but that's just guy rules that I have for me.
Absolutely.
And then we started talking about near death experiences. She said she was, part of the association, I believe, of near death experiences, something.org, something to that effect. And I was like, well, I just interviewed a guy that had near death experience last night for my podcast. And she was like, really? And I was like, then I asked her the question, would you be my guest on my podcast? Because she seemed really interesting, and she has been. I talked to her the other day. And so here she is. And
Hi,
so
hello everybody. Thank you.
thank you. And now, if you want, do you have any questions or any clarification for that part of the story, Lisa?
Well, to tell you a little bit about myself, as Aaron has, I had a near-death experience quite a long time ago, and it was back where people really didn't talk about it as much. But I've
Mm,
joined a group called IANS. It's International Association of Near Death Studies, and they really put the science to the near death experiences. It's
mm,
international, obviously. So they have people from all over the world that have told their stories, and they have documented and archived it and compared them and have statistics on them and a lot of like real details on near death studies. So it's not just, I imagined this, I dreamt this, or whatnot. So I felt kind of more more apt to tell my story because I realize I'm not the only one. And a lot of people that have near death experiences, they all kind of start out the same way where they go through the tunnel of light. Not everybody has told that story, but I think it's like 95% or 98% start with they went through the tunnel of light. The other people that didn't go through the light, had a very different negative experience, to say the least. Um, so I kind of like have taken that and made it sort of my goal is why do these people have these negative experiences? Is it their fear that they're not going to heaven? Is it their fear that they've done something wrong in their life, that they're determined they're going to hell? And I've talked to many people that have had near death experiences to see, where were they in their belief system when they had their experiences? Make sense?
Yeah. I'm following.
So, I have spoken at several conferences about my experience. I've listened to other people's, and what I've learned is that everybody has their own unique experience. And I feel like when you go to the other side, what you see, what you're told, what you learn is unique to you and your circumstances, either at the time or something in the future.
Hmm.
It's like you have this and you're brought back to earth for to complete something or to do something else or to have a different perspective. At the time that I had my near death experience, I was young. I was 25. I had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I had been come from privileged parents. My father was an attorney, my mother was an accountant, so I went to private schools all my life. And in order to go to private schools, they were all religious based. And I was baptized Methodist, but we weren't avid churchgoers. We just went like on Easter and that kind of thing, went there for Sunday school occasionally. But then I went to a Greek Orthodox school for my elementary school for 8 years. I found that to be the most interesting because they taught me the Greek mythology and the history, and it was just like stories to me. It wasn't like a religion. And then when
Yeah.
I went to middle school and high school, I went the Greek Orthodox only went up to 8th grade, so I had to go to another school. I went to a Catholic school, and then I asked my parents to take me out of that school. I went to a Christian/Baptist school. And what I've learned was a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of scandal. Just they don't teach, they don't preach, they don't do what they're preaching you. For example,
Right.
like the Catholic school, there were a lot of pregnant girls. They don't practice birth control, and I'm not this is just my story. I'm not knocking anybody. This is my
Sure.
experience. A lot of the Catholic girls were getting pregnant and they would get kicked out of school permanently. They were not allowed back at that school. But the boys that were getting them pregnant went on to sports and college and everything else. So it was like totally unfair in
Mm.
my eyes. There was also a lot of other stuff that was going on between a father and one of my friends. There was coaches that did things that were not appropriate to some of the female students. So there was a lot of yeah, a lot of bad things going on. So I asked my parents to
Yeah.
send me to another private school. So they sent me to a Christian Baptist school, and that didn't go too well either. I got out of school suspension because me and my girlfriend needed a ride home, and I gave the driver some money to give us a ride. He spent it on beer. My friend got groped in the back seat by one of the basketball players as they were taking us home. She was in tears, upset. I told the principal about it, and me and her get out of school suspension for buying alcohol. And the boys that were on the basketball team got in school suspension because they were on the basketball
Mm.
team and they needed the players. And that was just one sample. So it really
Yeah.
turned me against religion. Each religion taught me that their religion was the right religion. So I was very
Hmm.
confused on what is right and what is wrong. Like the Baptist Christian, like I couldn't wear like an Izod shirt or an Ocean Pacific shirt or some of the brand names that you wear because they considered it satanic.
Mm.
And you couldn't listen to any music but Christian music or it was considered satanic. So that was very confusing for me too because I didn't worship the devil or anything, but I like rock and roll music, and I was judged for not listening to Christian music even though my heart was with God and I went to Christian camps and I did everything, follow the 10 commandments type of thing.
Yeah.
So as I later in life, I had my 2 kids, and, I got deathly ill. I had a doctor I didn't have health insurance at the time, so I went to a walk-in clinic with a sinus infection. They gave me antibiotics, it didn't go away. They gave me more antibiotics, it didn't go away. After about 3 months, I'm on, like, heavy duty antibiotics and ibuprofen or Tylenol, and it eventually caused my liver to fail. And they flew
Mm.
me from where I was living down to Tampa to the hospital, and I was in a coma for about a week from liver failure. So that's how it all started.
You want?
What the first thing I didn't believe anything because everybody told me that their religion was right. So it was hard for me to have a specific faith in something or a specific belief in something. So I was going through this tunnel of light and I was like, "Oh, I've heard about this. You know, you go through the tunnel." I'm like, "But now I know what it is." When you're in ICU or an operating room, the first thing they do is they put this bright light on you so that doctors can see you. So I'm like, I debunked it. It's just the doctor's light. And then I really believe that's what it was. But as you go through this tunnel of light and I'm getting further and further from my body, you get this amazing feeling of so much love and comfort that
Mm.
the only way I've been able to describe it is, everybody loved Princess Diane. I don't know anybody that's ever said anything bad about her. Imagine her like on a stage and she's looking out at the kingdom and there's just like millions of people out there and they're all there to see her and they've got their lighters in their hands or candles or signs, cheering for her. And then multiply that feeling that she must have with all those people and all that love towards her, multiply that times like another million. That's how it feels going through this tunnel of light. You just feel nothing but comfort and love. And I was enjoying it. And I didn't, think, well, this is a bad thing whatsoever. I didn't think, oh my gosh, I'm dead. What's going to happen? It was nothing like that.
Mm.
So once I got through the tunnel, I was sort of like out in space. It was dark and you don't have a body. So you don't sleep, you don't eat, you don't have sex because you don't have a body. And the way that they communicated to me, it was three ladies, and it reminded me of the Golden Girls. There was like a smaller one, a medium one, and a larger one. And even though I couldn't see them, it was their energy that I was feeling, their personalities that I was feeling. They were like kind of like I perceived as behind me, speaking into my ear, because all the communication is telepathic.
Mm.
So it wasn't like I was actually hearing them. They were communicating telepathically to me. They showed me my past, everything that I had ever done wrong from a small child. I mean, believe it or not, you can start sinning as a young child. Like when you're walking, you're told not to do something and you do it.
Right.
That,
Don't touch that.
in a way of yeah, in a way you're disobeying and you know that you're not supposed to do it, but you do it anyway because you're just testing the waters. So you learn the difference between right and wrong at a very young age, younger than I thought. They showed me when I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. I remember my cat had kittens and I like tossing them up in the air and catching them because they had this surprised look on their face and their arms and their legs went out. And I just thought that was hilarious. And I would do it and catch these kittens. And it was like, they showed me how wrong that was. Like I was scaring these poor little kittens to the
Mm.
bigger things that I did wrong in my life, which I don't want to talk about.
Sure.
But then they showed me my present. And this is sort of like the Christmas past story. They
Okay.
showed me my present, and my present was my funeral. My 2 little girls were at my funeral. They really didn't understand what was going on, and they were kinda running up and down the aisles and playing games with some other kids, and I saw my mom, and my mom was just devastated. Aaron, I'll tell you, something, it's pretty personal, but, when I was growing up, me and my sister both didn't think our mother loved us.
Right.
She had lost a child in between my sister and me. So after my sister was born a year later, she had a baby and it lasted for, I don't know, a month or two, and then it died. So she was completely detached emotionally for us. So it was, we never got the I love you or any, hands-on affection, never really had any talks that a mother does with her kids growing up. So
Mm.
my perception was that there was no love for us at all. And then when I saw her at the funeral, she was just like, you know, falling down, hysterical. I was like, oh my gosh, my mother really did love us. And that, just that one thing that I saw changed our relationship forever. Because when I came back to my body and as I grew older and realized that what I saw was true, I started understanding my mother better and where she came from and why things were like they were. And then they showed me the future, and my daughters had two separate fathers. And the first father he had fallen to drugs and alcohol. And the second father worked out of town a lot. So my kids were given, the custody of them was given to the first father's girlfriend that also had two kids from him. But at the time that I was going through this near death experience, she only had one child. So it was my oldest daughter's half sister. And that's why my kids went to her for custody rights.
Yeah.
And they showed me, I was, as this whole experience is going on, I'm asking a lot of questions, a lot about religion, a lot about other things. But I just want to get the base story down for you. So when
Sure.
they showed me my kids, and I was like, I'm fine dying. This is fine. I feel comfortable. I have no fear. There's no reason for me to go back. Everything's fine. And they're like, well, here's your kids. And they showed me this lady had custody of my girls. And we went down to this hallway and they opened one door on the right. And it was this beautiful canopy bed with pink ruffles and, beautiful decor and lots of toys. And I was like, I'm fine. I can stay. My kids are being taken care of. I'm fine. They're like, no, no, your kids are in this room. And we went down the hall a little bit further and they opened the door on the left. And in that room was nothing, no toys, no clothes. It was a dirty mattress on the floor with no bed sheets or nothing. And my kids were in there with nothing on but dirty underwear. And that's when I
Mm.
decided, oh no, I'm coming back. And I left heaven and came back. So that was the gist of the main points of my experience. Do you have any
Wow.
questions yet?
Wow. No, I appreciate you sharing this story with or at least parts of it that you feel comfortable sharing with me. I think it's incredible. But do you have more to share about it, or?
Yes. So while I was there, because of my experiences with religion, and I was pretty sassy as a 25-year-old, I asked a lot of questions. So I asked them what was up with the Bible, like why every
Mm.
religion says that their religion's correct and every faith wants you to believe what they believe. And I was told that the Bible was not written by God, it was written by man, that there has been many translations over the years, either change in interpretation and translation through language or interpretation of the meaning of the stories. And that a lot of the stories were told not as factual, but as a way to get a point across. Like, the story of the boy that cried wolf. We tell our kids
Right.
that story so they can understand why we don't lie. It's sort of like that. They fabricate these stories so that you can just understand a clear vision of it. But one of the things that got me was about Adam and Eve. I never did, even as a young kid, I never believed that story because if everybody in the world came from two people, then why do we have so many different colors of people in the world? You know, why
Yeah.
are there black and brown and yellow and there's just one mother and one father? So I didn't understand that story at all. And I asked, and I was also taught about evolution. what is right. Were we created from evolution or were we created from Adam and Eve? And they showed me that it was kind of both. And they showed
Hmm.
this hand of God like throwing a fireball down on Earth and it hitting like the Gulf of Mexico, America area, creating this crater, and humans evolved from that. So, yeah, we were created by the hand of God, but not as the Adam and Eve in the rib story.
Sure.
So yeah, that was enlightening. Another thing that I asked was, and then again, I'm not trying to steer anybody in their belief system. This is just my experience. I asked things like, well, then why do we have ants? And they said ants are to clean the carcass. It's like, okay, that makes sense. They said everything has a purpose. Every plant, animal, everything has a purpose. And everything that is living has a soul. And after my near death experience, like years went by and I was, busy being a mom and whatnot. So I really didn't ponder on it. I just thought it was a dream. But then they started coming out with this scientific evidence I would hear of, like, they did a study at one of these universities where they took two plants side by side, and one plant they constantly yelled at, and the other plant they constantly nourished and not nourished physically, um, talked to it like you're so beautiful, you're so pretty, and da, da, da. And the one that they yelled at died, and the one that they, you know, didn't, that they encouraged, lived and became full and beautiful. So as I'm putting these as some of these things that they've told me, I'm starting to see happen in real time, in real life, made me realize that what I saw was actually true. What I saw was
Hmm.
actually, it did happen. It wasn't just a dream. It wasn't until my oldest daughter, was 18, and I was driving her home one day, and she said, the lady's name was Angie. She's like, "Do you know Angie used to abuse me?" And I'm like, "What?" 'Cause she would go over there to visit. Oh, that was another thing. They showed me that my daughter had 2 sisters. 6 years went by before that lady had another child from my ex, and they had split up. And I guess they had a one-night thing, and she got pregnant with a second child, and when she got pregnant with that second child, I was like, "Oh my gosh." They showed me that. They showed me that was gonna happen. And
Right.
then my daughter telling me that when she turned 18, that she was abused, when she would go stay there and visit her sisters by that same woman. I'm like, how do you mean? She's like, well, it was more like Cinderella. She would curse at me and tell me I was a POS and tell me I was a whore and a slut and make me clean up after my sisters and make me babysit my sisters. Um, but she didn't physically abuse, not hitting abuse, but
Right.
mentally and emotionally abused my daughter. And I was like, "Why didn't you
Yeah.
tell me that?" And she's like, "Because you wouldn't have let me go down there to see my sisters." It's like, "Well, you know what? You're right. I probably wouldn't." So the fact that that was true too was just, I couldn't just write it off as a coincidence anymore.
Wow.
So I did ask them who God was. Like, if you're so smart, as I'm heading back to Earth and into my body, who is God? And they said, what has the most powerful energy in the universe? What is everywhere at every moment and gives life to all things? You have an answer for that? Can you guess?
That's a interesting riddle. I mean, I don't want to guess.
They
I mean,
showed
in
me
all
the
the
sun.
universe, the sun. Okay.
They showed me the sun, and they didn't say it. They just like did a hand motion, like, look at the sun. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's, you put it that way. Yeah, it gives life to all things. I mean, what would we do without it? Nothing would grow. We wouldn't be able to eat.
Yeah.
It's everywhere all the time. It's somewhere on Earth all the time, and it is the most powerful energy in the universe. Now, is that God lives in Earth? Does the sun have a human form? Those are questions that I haven't answered yet, or been able to answer. I think it takes on the energy of the sun. but can communicate like to us in the form of a human. I don't know. Something to think about.
Yeah. Well, and I like, and man, there's so much. There's so much here. And thank you so much for sharing all this with me and with the podcast. More questions. And we can
Hmm.
ask some really, 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 really good questions, but really nobody really knows the answer. And it may be each person has a unique answer, which that goes back to everybody has a unique near death experience. But yeah, that's what I think about it. It's like it's a really good question and it just gives me more questions. But
Right.
I don't but then again, I don't really like what humanity does with answers. Whether we come up with them wherever we get them, but as you said earlier when you were talking about your religious experiences or experiences with religious people, let's say it that way,
Right.
that it was really hypocritical and they didn't practice what they preached, so to speak, and they didn't and not even indifference, but like to the other direction completely, like supporting the people that would, the football or the basketball players that we talked about that would take advantage of a girl. It's like that is, to me, the wrongest of wrong is to harm another person. And the most insidious way to do that is sexually, because sexual is a hidden thing that affects every avenue of life, sexual trauma. And I'm a little bit in the know on that because of military sexual trauma and what happens to sometimes males but mostly females in the military, where it's their job or they get a promotion, but to do that, they're expected to do certain things. I have never personally witnessed that in 20 years in the Marine Corps, but I have heard about it and I've heard stories. There'd be a line outside my door of women telling me it's true if I had anything to say other than that. But I know how easy it is for authority to take advantage of a weaker person. And not weaker, maybe not a lesser, definitely not a lesser person, but a person that's insecure, undeveloped, immature. Them like they
Under
don't know
their
what's right.
control.
Right, under their control. You know, I have seen a lot of good leadership that was more like a father to a young woman in the military, or kept them close to keep an eye on them and watch over them, because Marines are some of the roughest people. So yeah, so I just kind of went down a lot of rabbit holes in quick succession there, but I have definitely seen that, the hypocrisy you're talking about, the double standards. It's the
The
worst things in
corruption.
life, right?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's why I go back to what I said. It's the answers that we as man come up with that are the dangerous things. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Just the corruption in churches, and now it still exists today. And I asked them too, do I have to go and pray in a church? And they're like, no, you can pray anywhere at any time and communicate with God and heaven and everything. But there is something, they said, there is something to say for power in prayer. When more people come together as a community and pray or just celebrate life and, celebrate everything that we have and appreciation for life, and to request anything that might be, like world peace. When there's and now that the internet's out and we have all this social media, it's much easier to get a prayer group going, and you can change things through the power of prayer. And I think there is more light being shed on the corruption of churches, especially just corruption in general. It seems like more is being exposed, and it's sort of like a cleansing that I'm seeing. And I hope that it does get out of the church and people do feel more comfortable going to their local churches and not being taken advantage of, especially when you're a minor, because that is a developmental stage that can stunt somebody if it's not addressed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been a member. I'm not currently attending any church right now, but I have been a member of quite a few local churches, even some big churches, some very small churches over the course of my life. I was raised Baptist in an independent Baptist church, but I've come a long way from there. I have to say that I have to agree with you. Most of America would agree with you as far as the church has a lot of churches have become like a corporation. And I can recognize it. I mean, they've got the best marketing, the multi-million dollar marketing campaigns. They've got, giving away of free stuff. Then they've got the wonderful, tremendously manipulative wording of, trying to get our money from us and all this other stuff. But I don't want to talk too badly. I have a lot of good friends and a lot of good people from every aspect of their life that I can see that are trying to live up to the standards that they talk about. But not everybody. And there's a lot that aren't. And it's definitely, I would definitely corroborate that the church is kind of coming out of a dark spell right now, it seems like, of where people are doing wrong things. Nothing was done to the church, but the church, when you give that much power and that much money to normal human beings, then they're like, it doesn't bring out the best in them somehow.
Right. And it's other things that I learned is that you know, a lot of people, even atheists that have no belief whatsoever in God and Christ, can still go to heaven. It's not that you are doomed to go to hell. And to be honest, I really don't put a lot of belief into hell. Like you mentioned, my husband's a Marine. He believes in Valhalla. I'm a soldier. I'm always going to be a soldier. And we have this debate all the time. But don't, just because people do things wrong, and this is a message for everybody out there, just because you do things wrong, maybe you've committed murder, maybe as a soldier you've killed people, children and women also, it happens, it's war. That does not condemn you to hell. You have a conscience, you have a soul, and you don't even have to feel bad about doing it because it was your job in the service to do such a deed. Now, you might feel bad, and a lot of people do, and there's so many of our soldiers have committed suicide. I see it way too often. And it when you're on the other side, you don't have a lot of those emotions that you have on earth. So if anybody's ever thinking about committing suicide, you got to think about what the reasons are and close your eyes and see if those problems go away. Chances are they don't. So when you're dead, you still have those feelings, but now you're dead, you know?
Hmm.
Killing yourself does not cure your problems. You're still going to have tho- those things to deal with on the other side. Now, let's say somebody wants to commit suicide because they did a lot of corrupt things and they're broke and they don't want to admit it and they want to relieve themselves of all their debts. Well, yeah, killing yourself will probably relieve yourself of all those debts. But it's not going to change who you are or what you're dealing with inside. You'll still have to deal with that. So I suggest anybody thinking about that to please get help. Reach out to people that are professionals that can help you. Think about the reasons why you feel that way, and try to understand yourself better. And know that you are human. We are human. And you can forgive yourself just like God and everybody else will.
Love it. And I completely agree. I've been coming to this point of, well, there's so many directions I want to go. I have a story about how I was pretty much kicked out of a church just because my wife left me and kicked out of everything
Wow.
I was doing. I was singing special music, offertory music. I'd been doing that my whole life. Not at that church, but I was in the Marine Corps, so I moved around a little bit. It was at a church. I'm not going to even say where it was, but they kicked me out. I was teaching a Sunday school class. I was no longer allowed to teach a Sunday school class or go to a Sunday school class because they didn't have a separated divorce Sunday school class,
Mhm.
which would probably just be a dating Sunday school class anyway, but they didn't have anything for that. And so it was just like, I used to go for 2 hours of steady church of all kinds of activities and stuff I did and helped and got good feelings and good vibes out there for people. And all of a sudden it's like, drop my kids off at Sunday school and go back to the car and sit there. I mean, I could sit there for the service. They didn't like have armed guards keeping me out, but I felt absolutely singled out, a pariah. The people that I'd hung out with in Sunday school class no longer talked to me. Nobody was there, to help guide me through it. But the beautiful thing about that story, it sounds so terrible, right? And it goes with what we're talking about with the ways that churches are sometimes. They just don't know what to do in situations like mine. But in a little bit more detail, my wife at the time was still living in our military housing, but she was going out dating and drinking and going to concerts and coming back, maybe come back the next day, maybe not. And we had two kids together and we had two of the kids were hers from before we got married. And I was basically childcare and also on active duty Marine Corps full-time shift work and in childcare when I was home and cooking, cleaning, doing dishes. And it was just causing confusion and chaos. And I was the lead E. So, you got a lead who's been planning and thinking about it for a while, and they just pull the trigger and do it, and it catches the other person off guard, the lead E, who's trying to make it work and trying to ask them to go to counseling and reading books and doing everything I can to try and convince her that we could stay married and we can make it work. And she wasn't hearing any of that, and I was just not able to sleep at night. And this is a point, a crossroads in my life, and I'm sharing just briefly with you, and with the listeners. But in that moment, I can still remember it was dark in the house. It was like midnight. My soon-to-be ex, my wife at the time, was out, knew she was with another guy. They were laughing and having fun, and she's married to me. And I was just in this misery and this crisis. And I wasn't thinking about suicide, but I was crying out in prayer, crying out, laying down, face down in the middle of my front room, crying out to God, not understanding the injustice of this whole thing, not understanding, I didn't cheat on her. I didn't even drink at that point. I never even smoked a cigarette or drank a beer at that point in my life. I was 26, so I had a little bit different life, but especially weird for a Marine. But yeah, I was sitting there and laying there, and that's when I heard God whisper to me. And he whispered just one word. And over the course of my life, you might think that I keep making bad decisions, but as I'm telling you, I'm just trying to do the best I can. I'm following all the rules that I'm aware of, even the ones from the Bible, the ones from my upbringing, and I still keep running head on into these situations. And God was always right there. And then I opened up my Bible to a random verse, to a random spot, because I read my Bible every day. I prayed every day. I did all the things. I did all the things. I did extra things. And it wasn't a keeping score thing. It wasn't to make myself better than the next guy. It wasn't about appearance. It was about, I really believed it. And I really
Right.
believed that that was the best way to do it. And so, but he spoke that one word to me, and it was breathe. It seems so silly, but I swear that that word has continued to nourish me. Even 20 years later, maybe it's 25 years later now, every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, that's right, breathe. And you're going to get through it, and it's going to be okay. And within
I
short
like
order,
that.
when I started breathing that night, like deep breaths, and I went to sleep, and I started going to counseling. It was supposed to be together, but she didn't show up. And my counselor gave me a breathing activity where you could tense up your whole body while you breathed in and you breathe out. And it's like, it's a gift that keeps on giving. And that's only one time and that separated my idea of God from my idea of the church. And the church kicked me out essentially. And God said, as I was telling you, I opened up the scriptures, and it was a verse in Psalms that I haven't been able to find again. Maybe it doesn't exist, but I opened it up to read, and it said, and God was like, would you like to walk on the hidden path with me? I felt in my heart, and I was like, okay, because I thought God had given up on me too, because the church had found me, not worthy of those things. But yeah, so yeah, that's interesting, and I can see a similarity in the very practical, down to earth, but also very nourishing and helpful God that I know between, your story of your near death experience and, what we're sharing. I'm sorry, I'm going to turn it back over to you. What do you think of that story or
Well, that goes
another?
back to what they had told me is everything happens for a reason. I love your story, and I'm sorry that you went through that. I'm sorry that the church behaved that way and treated you that way because that is, especially when you're young and you're outcasted by the church. It's like, boy, I must be a horrible person. That's what was going through my head. We are all human beings. We are all, no one's perfect. And they told me that too, that we are not gods. We are human and we are meant to come to earth and learn and experience things and make mistakes and learn from our mistakes and improve ourselves. And you do not have to be perfect to go to heaven. You can make lots of mistakes, as I have, as a lot of people have. You don't have to be the Pope to go to heaven. And as much as, you hear things about tribulation and whatnot these days, I don't really want to say that you're going to make it to heaven if you don't pray every day. But again, I believe in the power of prayer. So if you want world peace, if you want things to be better in the world, pray it. If you want your life to be better, pray it. Ask for it. Always say what you're grateful for. I always start out with thank you for everything I have. Thank you for my finances. Thank you for my family, my dogs. And then I say the Lord's Prayer, the Psalm 23, lately Psalm 91. And then I ask for things, I pray for the president to make the right decisions in his administration. And I pray for the administration. I pray for world peace. Pray for Iran, the people in Iran. And I pray for everybody. And I don't, the worst thing that someone can tell me is that they don't think they're going to make it to heaven or they don't believe they're worthy to go to heaven. And I'm here to
Yeah.
tell everybody out there, everybody in this universe is worthy. You just need to open your heart and open your soul and do the right thing. If you're doing bad things and evil things and dark things, yeah, you probably won't make it to heaven. But everybody has the opportunity and it's up to you.
And I love that you can turn it around at any time. I love that. Isn't that amazing that even if they're doing dark things and we talk about murder, or now the biggest thing is Epstein Island and all this craziness that
Wow.
people have been doing. Like, it's almost like stop, drop, and roll. That command that I've actually never used in my life. It's like just stop and turn around. Or another way I like to say it is U-turns. It's a U-turn. Do you feel guilty when you take a U-turn at the interstate? No, you don't. You change direction and change actions. And, people might even wonder, and I'm not going to give anybody a 3-step plan on it or anything, but I really like what you had to say about gratefulness and celebration. And I think gratefulness is amazing. And if anybody, and you can, well, they tell you now too, I mean, if you watch TikTok videos or any short videos, that like gratefulness rewires your brain. I mean, science is saying that. Gratefulness makes you rewire your brain, and I shared on a previous podcast. Well, gratefulness has been a topic on a lot of them, but that like I went looking for 10 pretty rocks in a parking lot, and I realized that all the rocks were pretty. And I realized that I could pick up any one I want at any time, and you could take it all the way through to jewelry if you wanted to, or to something special. But there's just so much abundance. Well, and the latest kick I'm on, and this is the last thing, well, not the last, but the last thing I'm going to say before I turn it back over to you again, is that it's like we're miracles. Has anybody noticed their body and how it works, how it doesn't require very much repairs, and all the doctors do is help it heal itself? but how much of the time you don't even have to worry about any of that, especially in your 20s. Now I'm in my 50s and I'm like, my back hurts. Whoa, I need to do some stretches or I need to do some warm up. I need to talk to a chiropractor. And so there's little maintenance that's come and due, but that pales in comparison of all the things that are working without any supervision ever, you know? Anyway, I'm sorry. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. I love it. I love it. And that's into managing apartments. Well, I worked for the state for a while as an inspector, and then I went into managing senior apartments. I know that's a complete turnaround, but in my first year, what I wanted to do was help people cross over because so many people
Right,
were scared to die because they thought they were going to go to hell or they thought, something bad was going to happen. They're just fear of death. I mean, I'm not telling people to go out there and run in front of a car, but believe in something good and something good will happen. If you believe that you're going to hell, you're going to create that hell and that's where you're going to go. You can control that with your thoughts. So you want to go to heaven, create your own heaven and pray and dream about it, and that's what you'll get when it's your time. Don't be scared of it. It's a beautiful thing. And I thought
mm,
my family would be there to greet me. Like my brother, he died when he was 30 and I was 17. I was like, and my grandmother was dead. I thought they'd be on the other side waiting for me, but no, I didn't see them as much as I wanted to. But I'm sure if I stuck around, I would have seen them. But yeah, have no fear. Whatever you've been taught that to fear and religion, change your way of thinking because it's beautiful and you're not going to hell unless you want to.
yeah. Well, and I've been thinking about a long time. So this is a long time running thought for me is like to some extent, we make this life our hell or heaven as well by the choices we make. If we make choices to help people, it seems like I am walking almost an eternally fun life. But if I make choices to hurt people, well, my body, my mind, all of me begins suffering along with whoever I hurt in a different way. Our body makes sure and our mind makes sure that we pay for the things we do to harm. When we harm others, we harm ourselves. And when we help others, we help ourselves. I don't know. But I'm not
Right.
saying definitively that's heaven or hell, but it feels a lot like hell and it feels a lot like heaven to make those different choices that from my personal experience.
Oh, I agree. I mean, we were given the feeling of guilt. You don't have that feeling on the other side as much. Everything's like diluted. Some of those emotions are diluted because when they were showing me throwing kittens up in the air, I was like, I looked at it as like, oh my gosh, that's so horrible. But I didn't feel like I just felt okay. That was wrong, but I didn't feel
Right.
like like you cheat on your spouse and you feel guilty. Well, you should feel guilty the next day. It's we were giving that gauge to gauge
Right.
ourselves on the difference between right and wrong. Some people just aren't born with it, whether it's a mental issue or not. Yeah, most people have a gauge built in, and if you feel guilty about doing something, then yeah, don't do it no more.
Yeah, the easiest way. Thank you for that one step, clean your life up program. No, I'm just playing. I'm joking with it. Program. But yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it's true. Isn't it so simple? It's like, it's just the same as being grateful or, oh, being honest. That gets so difficult for some people, but I guess, I mean, the lies get piled up and now you have to lie to cover up the lies. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's so simple, but it's also like honesty builds relationships, whether business or personal, whether romantic or parent child or strangers or anything. Just being honest about how you feel, what you think, what you know. I'm not saying beat them up with a honesty bat, spiked honesty bat or anything. There's some discretion, but I've had to come to the place inside myself where I've had to decide that I'm going to be honest with myself. So, show me the rough, terrible memories. I'm going to look at them honestly. I'm going to reconcile them, put them away. for myself so that I can be honest, so that nothing ever, because a lot of people, well, and shoot, we could take this back to some extent to like the super mega church or whatever, where like, well, yeah, we're honest unless we can make some more money off of it. Then, well, honesty is not as important as making money, or wherever your allegiances may lie. If something is more important to you than honesty, then that's going to throw everything out of whack for you, a person.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Well, were there any other rabbit holes you wanted to chase down? I've got like a page full of stuff, and we're going to have to wrap it up at some point, but we can go for a little bit longer if you've got something else. For sure, I've got plenty.
What's your biggest thing that's standing out that you want to go down?
Well, I could talk about the Bible a minute. I could talk because I've studied it down to the ancient languages for the most part. I'm very familiar with it.
Wow.
Me and my wife talk about it a lot, and I would have to agree with you, surprisingly, right? I mean, raised in the church, raised on the Bible, been reading it. I bought my first Bible when I turned 16 after I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior, and I gave him everything. With the first job I worked, I took 10%, took it to church, and the rest of it, I went and bought myself my own Bible, and I started reading it every morning, even taking it to school with me. So I was completely on board with it, and I started back then, and now I have apps that I can look up a verse and dig down to the ancient Greek or Hebrew and see what they were really saying. To some extent, because you don't get all the colloquialisms. You don't get all the little things like we say in English, oh, that's really cool. And a foreigner might say, well, it doesn't feel cold or hot to me, and we're like, oh, no, cool is a different kind of, so there's all those things. Their languages have them the same as English. And so understanding those ancient texts can be a booger, and to expect somebody like, welcome to church. Oh, you come up front today. It's your first day at church. Well, you can understand the Bible. I'm like, man, I've been studying it my whole life, and I'm barely scratching the surface,
Right.
getting down to what they were really saying. And it's so interesting to me when it's exactly the opposite of how people and theologians are interpreting it. I can't think of any. If I think of an example, I'll bring it out. But so many times, there's so many nuanced things there down deep. Because, I don't know, we tend to think that ancient civilizations weren't as smart as us. They were like Neanderthals with clubs, except for that there are pyramids all around the planet. We don't know how they built them at all without any of our technology. We can't even build them. And they built them. And we're like, I don't understand about that. We can't understand their languages. Maybe they didn't even use written languages. I mean, I don't know. I'm going crazy now. Let's go back to the Bible. But the Bible, I believe, like you, that a lot of it is oral stories and traditions. And there's certain parts that are kind of more historic, like the life of Jesus. You had 4 different people watching him, listening to what he said. And you had a lot more people than that. But those are the people that they thought were a good fit for what they wanted in the Bible to say. Things like whether, another controversial topic I could bring up is whether Revelations even belongs in the Bible or not. Whether the author is who they say he is. I mean, and I'll tell you my personal hot take, as they say these days, is that like I read the Gospel of John. Read it through, studied it with a study guide, comprehensive study. Better than college these days, better than college classes. And I feel like I had an understanding of the author. You know how you get to know the author as you read their books, right? You kind of get to know a little bit about the artist who did the books as you study them more and more. And then I read Revelation, supposedly by the same author as the book of John, and I'm like, no, this doesn't seem like the same author. And then they talk about Jesus, and I'm like, and this doesn't seem like the same Jesus. And so that's my personal hot take. And so, but then I find out that it took the writers of the Bible 250 years to get Revelations even approved. So they had to wait for some people to die off to even get it into the canon of Scripture. But so that's the interesting universe that I have lived in my whole life, of understanding and seeing the Scripture, and then going to church and say, well, hold on a second. I don't think that's what that means at all, or I don't think that's what Jesus was meaning when he said that. As a good
Right.
example, I think Jesus would say, vote for Trump. I'm like, well, let me take a look. I mean, he doesn't want you to vote for anybody. It'd be my take based on the Gospels. But anyway, so there you go. There's the Bible and what's wrong and right with it in 10 seconds or less. What do you think about that?
That's like having Congress write the Bible. Like, can they agree on anything, or they're just going to massage everything to get something passed? It's. I think the best way to look at it is, and you can, like you said, you can read something today and then read it maybe a year later and have a different meaning to it. Read what calls out to your heart, what calls out to your soul, and interpret it as you feel that you need it interpreted for that day or that time of your life. Because one sentence can have several different meanings, and you, it's
Absolutely.
like the police asking, 10 witnesses what they saw. Oh, it was a red shirt, it was a yellow shirt, it was a blue shirt. Everybody saw something different. Everybody had a different perception of it all. So just let it guide you where you feel that it makes sense to you, and leave it at that. And
Yeah.
maybe it's I don't think there's any right or wrong to any of it. It's just how it helps you along your life's path.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm disagreeing a little bit. Just a thimbleful of disagreement on the fact of the golden rule. Like, if you do to others the way you want to be treated, I have found that you can almost do anything that way, and it's going to turn out good. It's going to go a good
Hmm.
direction. So I think that's a good statement. But
I agree.
there's a few things like that you can like just try and live out, and the more you try and live it out, the more good happens for you and everybody around you. But yeah, but there's a lot open to interpretation, and for the most part, I completely agree with you that if it leads you to do harm to somebody else or yourself, I'm going to say you maybe don't understand it good enough, but it
Yeah,
leads you
I
to
can see
help
with
somebody
that.
else or yourself, then run with it. Like, run with your full heart if it helps yourself and other people. And it makes you, feel like an amazing human being. Then good. But
I agree with that
so
completely.
yeah. Well, I kind of knew you would. That's why I was like, it's a thimbleful of disagreement. Because I get the feeling for really who you are and what guides you over the course of our conversations. But, well, I guess we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me today, Lisa. It's been a treat.
Absolutely, my pleasure anytime. And I do suggest anybody that's interested in near-death studies to look up IANDS. I don't get paid to earmark them, but IANDS.org. Lots of stories out there, and get your own take and your own beliefs and your own thoughts of what you feel is on the other side. Don't just take my word. That was just my experience, and I don't want to have anybody come off the tracks of their belief system by my story only. Do your own homework.
Absolutely. And I agree with Lisa, too, that, like, the only things we're even talking about on this podcast today is things trying to help. We're just trying to help, trying to bring light, trying to be understanding, trying to bring some grace, and trying to help humans, all of you out there. So thank you for listening to the podcast and joining us today. And I hope you got something out of it.